G'day guys, thanks for tuning into another episode of Jack's Mechanics. Today our episode is going to be on catch cans and should we fit them to our diesels. In short answer, for me personally, yes. Some people may say no, and that's fine, each to their own. If you want to know reasons why I would recommend that, keep watching this video. If you don't know what a catch can looks like, basically this is a Provent 200 man humble version. Has a filter inside. It's got a hose coming from the rocker cover and hose going out of the catch can back to the engine. We've got oil collected down the bottom there from oil mist through the PCV system. The filter is interchangeable in this catch can. Also has pressure relief valves, and I have seen people do testing on them. People say, oh, you could have excess crankcase pressure and you can burst out seals, this, that and the other. If you guys aren't a part of the automotive technician, I would recommend having a look on there. They've done testing with high quality oscilloscopes, the picoscope in particular, and putting pressure transducers into the dipstick and measuring crankcase pressure, with different filters, and basically if the lines were routed the wrong way and that sort of thing. So they were basically debunking myths. And if you haven't seen the video, basically the crankcase pressure that it elevated was very minimal. So the reason that you may be watching this video is wondering, what is a catch can and why should we have it fitted? The main reason is to stop that going back into our engine. We don't really want that going back into our engine. That's obviously all waste oil, blow-by oil. The PCV system itself is positive crankcase ventilation. As the engine's turning over with heat, and also engines not being 100% sealed, perfectly good running thing, as the piston's coming up on the compression stroke, you have the piston rings around the piston, and once it makes that combustion, basically some of that combustion blows by the ring, some of that air is blowing by the rings and making its way into the sump. That is got like hydrocarbons and bad stuff for the atmosphere in there. So what we want to try and do is take that gas and put it back through the engine, and they do that via the PCV system. So we put it back into the engine and try and take it back into the cylinders and reburn it, and basically it's a lot better for the environment. So originally we would have this hose. This is not the original hose anymore, but it would be coming from the rocker cover down the end there, and going straight into the turbo. The turbo would suck it into the engine and, like I just said, try and burn it again. So instead now we have it routed coming through here, through the top vent, going through the filter, and then out of the bottom vent, back through the turbo, but less the oil mist. As the engine's turning around and the crank is getting swashed in the sump with windage and that sort of thing, you have tiny little oil molecules basically floating through, getting sucked through the engine, some coming out of the rocker cover, even though there is obviously the baffle plate and that stuff in the rocker cover. Nothing is 100% perfect. It's guaranteed you're going to get oil coming through your PCV system. So that oil mist is what we want to try and control. And the reason we want to control that is to try and stop our intake manifold getting blocked full of carbon, or that sooty mixture that you might have heard so much about. On this Hilux here, down here we have the EGR port, EGR standing for exhaust gas recirculation. So we have exhaust gases coming out here. We send them through a cooler to try and cool them down, and then we have the EGR valve here, which is determined by the computer. Well, this is just a position sensor, but it has these vacuum valves here that control the diaphragm. We won't get too in depth into that, but basically we put exhaust gas back into the intake to reduce a full fresh charge of air. So if we have the piston coming down and it draws in all that air, when we put that bit of fuel in there, that cylinder is going to be, really, really hot when all that burns. So what we want to do, instead of basically chucking more fuel in there to try and cool the cylinders down, we need to instead put in EGR gas, so already burnt gas. So let's say we have 100% charge of air, and then let's say we put in 20% worth of EGR gas. So theoretically now we have 80% clean air. The EGR gas is already burnt up oxygen, so it cannot combust again. Because it can't combust again, the cylinder doesn't get as hot. And the reason we want to try and control cylinder temperatures from getting too hot is because at an extreme temperature we have oxides of nitrogen that are formed, NOx, that you guys might have heard about. They're really, really bad for the atmosphere. So they're really bad for the atmosphere. On the diesel combustion event, we have soot that is formed, as well as other hydrocarbons and other things. But the main thing that we're concerned about is the soot. So we have the exhaust gas recirculation valve putting back that gas through the intake, which is all good, but we have that sooty element to it. At the same time, we also have, if we go back over there, the PCV system putting in oil mist and other gases. That oil mist mixes with the soot of the EGR circuit, and when you're idling and the airspeed getting pulled through the engine is really, really slow, it comes down and they merge together and they stick on the intake manifold walls and on the valve, and it blocks everything up and it reduces overall engine performance. You might see excess smoke out the back because you have incorrect mixtures in the cylinders, because the mass airflow sensor is still reading the correct amount of air coming in, but the amount of air going to any in particular cylinder may vary a lot. So when we put the catch can in and it catches that oil mist, it reduces basically that mucky, sticky, carboned up stuff that blocks up your intake. Sorry, I just had to stop the video there. I think, as I was saying, when we have the PCV, the catch can catching the oil mist, now all we have is dry, sooty gases going through here, and that's not a bad thing. We really actually need EGR operation for, like I say, reducing NOx. Also in some cases, I know particularly in the Hilux model, if you're ever in an overboost situation, it will open the EGR valve to reduce the amount of boost that you're making to control potential engine damage. EGR is actually important as much as people hate it. Putting a catch can on it is the right way to go about it. It's it's a conversation that not many people enjoy having, because a lot of people argue about it and that sort of thing, but in my opinion, they're a good thing. I'll put it on my car. I recommend it to all my customers. This tied on with a intake manifold removal and clean, and you're going to have trouble-free driving for many years to come. Like I say, I would personally recommend it. you know, for maybe 500 bucks installed, definitely worth it. Even your oil, you just don't really want that stuff going back in there. So I hope that clears things up for you guys. It's a bit of a, like I say, a bit of a hard conversation, a bit of a touchy subject with catch cans and that, all that sort of thing. But if it's helped you out in any way, or if you have any further questions, drop them in the comment section below and I'll definitely get back to you and, like I say, give you my opinion on it. And yeah, go from there. So take care, guys. Please consider liking or subscribing to the channel, and we'll see you at the next one.